ways. So, but yeah, as we discussed last time, so today hopefully we'll be able to, one, maybe have some preliminary information results, but also make some more definitive determinations as to which papers we will be pursuing. And I'm not sure, so Justin and Longju, I think you guys were planning to look at the data. Did you have a chance, or I don't know?
Yeah, okay, so I didn't. I know I reached out to Longzhu, and we've kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, we've kind of decided who's going to do what. So personally, this is my last week of exams, so I have to wrap up admin before I sort of shift gears. But yeah, I think I volunteered to do the individual and the team antecedents and whatever prep, and then Longju, you do the other two, I believe. Right? Is that right?
Yes. I did some preliminary work. I cleaned up the data set, and I ran just basic correlation matrix. Do you want me to show the results today?
Maybe if there is something. So our main interest was to see if there are any correlations, if anything seems to be. So basically, are we onto something, or it's completely random? And then
can I?
Yeah, it
should
have
the access to.
Yeah, it should. I thought I made it so that everyone can share, but. Yeah, let me also make you co-host if that doesn't help.
Oh, I can.
Yeah, I set it so that everyone can share by default. So what are these here? Can you show those country values? Just interesting, since you mean. So this is that's the peer evaluation. So is there much variance?
This is just peer evaluation on complaining behaviors, and by country.
But we do have, like I see that with some countries, I'm not sure how many students we had there, but it seems like Belarus is only 3.8, but somebody was 5.0. And Antigua and Barbuda, I suspect that it's a small, like maybe 1 or 2 students, so maybe that's why the number is so extreme. But then Austria is definitely represented more, and it seems like Austrians complain much more than Belarusians, for example, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I also have a full table with cases. I mean, valid cases and missing cases. But
I'm this is what about the study where we'll do the national rankings. I wonder if there will be enough variance, like if we can show that some countries are high, some countries are low.
In some countries we only have like 5 or 6, 3, 1.
So may have to decide, but we'll still have enough countries with many cases, right?
But this is what I did. These are the 4 variables I focused on. The first one is just following the vision file that's put in Dropbox. The first 2 are complaining or seek help at 2 weeks, week 10, week 11. This is the question they ask the students. Ask them, have things ever gone bad in your team that you had to complain or ask for help from a professor or ex-culture? And the second set of variables are self-evaluate complaining, or peer evaluate complaint. But the question is this person or are you usually complained a lot or was grumpy or showed irritation?
And by the way, 10 and 11, it's almost the same. So the only thing is, I think in one of the tracks we asked that, I think it was just one was longer. So one had 1 extra week. So, but both cases, that's basically post-project. So it's essentially the same variable. We can combine them.
Mm-hmm. And also self-evaluate, I think, correct me if I'm wrong about self-evaluation and peer evaluation. They are also both post-project, yes.
Post-project, yeah.
And this is the big correlation table on individual level. The column highlight in orange are self-eval and peer eval on complaint, grumpy, irritation.
So here we see, so we basically see a correlation. So it looks like all those different measures measure more or less, if not the same thing, then very related thing, right? So basically people say things went so far that I needed to complain. Then peers also say, yes, this person was complaining. And then they say, yes, I was complaining. Okay, that's good. That kind of validates that behaviors and evaluations there is a correlation. It's not a perfect correlation, but it is significant.
Mm-hmm. And then also add a set of variables like motivation, advocacy, enjoyment, and clarity.
Longjung, is this is this at the individual level or the country level of analysis?
This is an individual level.
Individual level. And so a correlation between cell 2A and cell 2D. Okay, you just took those out. Okay.
This one.
Yeah. So it's out now.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry. I was seeing the 0.67 and it didn't strike me as something that we should be looking at because it's different weeks or.
Oh, this is like a overall.
Sorry. A5.
A5. This one?
Yeah, A5 and in cell D5.
D5. Oh, this
because,
one?
Yeah, that's
right.
not necessary for us to be looking at because they, as I understood, they were 2 different administrations in 2 different weeks. Is that correct?
That's a good question. Yeah. So
yes.
But I wonder, so does it mean that we had the same people do it twice in week 10 and then in week 11? Maybe that's how I did it.
Yes, I checked the individual code book. There's only 1 year, one semester. We have data on both week 10 and week 11.
Maybe we did ask twice then, so okay.
But the following semesters, there's either at week 10 or at week 11. So there's only one semester.
In one, maybe it was done actually twice. Okay.
Yes.
I forgot those details. Okay.
So this is go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, if you scroll down, and if you look at all these variables, and I have the impression,
what does Lonju, just one more question. So what does the B stand for?
B, there's no data. I mean, there's no time point where we have data for both variables.
Within the same administration.
Right, yes. So for this semester, I don't know what year was it, which semester, but we don't have data for self-efficacy and self-evaluate complaint at the same time.
Yeah, I'll need to take a look. So technically it should be, but maybe there was something. Yeah, I'll need to take a closer look. So no big deal. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, if you scroll down, I have the impression, like the old saying goes, the squeaky wheels get the grease.
Yeah.
So if you look at these self-evaluate complaint and peer evaluate complaint, like this person always complain or grumpy or irritation, and you can see that they are the most, they're the highly motivated person. They enjoy more. They have better, higher clarity on the task.
It almost looks like it looks like those who care more, they complain more, so to speak, right?
Yes, and they experience less conflict, and they experience lower level of actual challenge or actual barrier, and they are.
Wait a second. Does it show that complaining in this case is actually good, or at least correlates with good behaviors? Is that correct? I'm trying to see what the scale directionality here is. I
think somehow if you complain more, you have a better experience.
It's a cathartic experience to emote.
Yep. Lower conflict, better clarity, higher enjoyment, better satisfaction.
So it almost looks like maybe it's the good students who complain, or students when things go well.
Yeah, but we might be classifying their comments as complaints, but they might not.
Right. So they say, we see a problem, I see a problem, I voice where I talk about it, and the problem gets solved.
Yeah.
And again, the self-evaluate and peer evaluate complain. The question is this person complaining a lot or grumpy or show irritation? And the team level looks like the similar story.
Yeah, that's what I was interested in. So maybe at the individual level, that's one story, but when the team has a complainer, then maybe all kinds of things go wrong, but it almost seems like, it seems like the correlations are primarily positive. So if somebody is making a lot of noise, then people are in the end more satisfied, more things are clear.
But I think we have to also recognize it's a double-barreled question, because it's complain / seek help. And it
this is
the other one, complain, seek help, but this one, peer evaluations, it literally reads, was this person grumpy, irritating? What was the question there, Lonju? Grumpy, irritating, and
Complained.
Yeah, so this person complained, was grumpy, and showed irritation. So the peer evaluation and self-evaluation is kind of phrased in a negative term.
Mhm.
The more the person complained,
Showed grumpiness or irritation. It seems like still in the end it did help, because it looks like in the end the team then still was happier and more informed than whatever else we looked. So it seems like complaining does pay off then even at the team level. Interesting. Can we
Long-Su, could you go to clarity real quick? I just want to add something. If you go to report clarity, which is 17, right? No, clarity of 16.
16.
16.
Yes.
So if you look at the difference here, peer evaluation, self-evaluation, complaint, that's the grumpiness and irritation, right? Whether they complain.
Yeah.
And then you have the yellow one, D and E, would be seeking help. So if you look at this is a negative relationship. So they say they don't have clarity, so they have to seek help. So there's a negative relationship, right? If you don't have clarity, you have to seek for help. In a way. Is that what that relation means? The negative relationship? That you say if you don't have clarity, then you seek help, so you have the negative relationship. And then if you look at at B and C, now the grumpiness means that if you're that high achieving student, which it seems that you're a good student and you have full clarity, but maybe your team members don't have clarity because they don't care, they didn't read the instructions, you complain about the team. So could we add a dimension and see whether there's clarity among the team members? And that's the reason for complaining, so to turn the causality upside down from clarity to complaining.
I need to check what's the relationship. So peer evaluations, the higher the number, Long-Su.
Mhm.
Is it so it almost seems like the scales are reversed. So for complain, seek help, I think 0 is I never had to ask for help. And then the larger the number, the more often the person was, But here, is it 0, 1, 2, 3? I'm trying to find the scale here, because
right,
it
yes.
looks like the two are inversely correlated.
Yes.
You know?
I mean, but you're right, Vast. I just checked the individual code book. It looks like 5, the highest value
So
for self.
5 is good. Five never
That was
comes
good.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah. So, and that's why when I saw the negative correlation between behavior and peer evaluations, it was negative. So I assumed that for one, the larger the number, the more complaining. So the yellow ones are the larger the number, the more complaining. But the orange ones are, the larger the number, the less complaining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now it makes more sense.
Okay, so just to confirm that we're on the same page, cell B5.
So then it's the opposite.
The more you complain, so this should have been reverse coded in essence, to be able to say, so it's a lack of complaining rather than complaining.
Yeah. So
right.
That's a reverse. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So complaining is not a good thing to team and to individual.
So
the more they complain.
It looks like, but then again, the question is the direction of the causality. Is it the more complain, the worse things go, or when the things go badly, people complain more? It almost seems like, people react or complaining causes.
Long-Su, did you by any chance put what the scores were for the teams, what their performance scores were here?
Yes, I think I had somewhere. Oh, right here. 20.
So so at when people had to ask for help, so the correlations are not necessarily very. So that's the quality of the report, right?
Right, that's the quality of the report.
So at the end of the day, it has virtually no bearing on performance.
No.
Yeah.
However, on the affective components, it does have a bearing.
Yeah.
Yes.
The more the complaints, the less enjoyment.
Yeah.
But it doesn't affect, what is E again, column E?
It's the same as column, so just measured at different weeks depending on the semester or if it was both.
Thank you. Yeah, that's interesting that there was a significant correlation.
Yeah, I think it could be also, they're close enough, so it could have been just sort of a chance that one is a little bit stronger than the other, just enough to be significant. Long-Su, and so when we look at conflicts, process conflict, task conflict, so that's where I see the highest correlations, right? So basically,
yes,
complaining correlates with conflicts. And again, the question is complaining the cause of conflicts, or when conflicts happen, people start complaining? But it seems like the correlations are strong and remarkably consistent regardless of the measure, right?
Yes, we only have post-project data on complaining behaviors. Otherwise, we can test that causality.
Yeah. So we don't know which one happens first. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but we do see that either or, but there is a relationship. So what happens in the team when complaining happens? Or
yeah,
I saw at the individual level you also had some personality demographics. Can we see who complains?
oh, right, yes. Unfortunately, personality, I don't think they have data, but culture is interesting. I mean, here EQ, CQ all help. No.
So those with higher emotional intelligence complain less, essentially, right?
Mhm.
And those who
Yes.
are more resilient, they complain less. So that's not surprising.
Yep.
Do we have like age, gender, like men versus women? Yeah, and we have.
Yeah, I mean, culture value is interesting.
Yeah, so those with higher power distance. Oh, is it they complain more? I guess in this case, right?
They complain more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then those with masculine, achievement orientation, that I guess is not surprising. Yeah.
If they're high in uncertainty avoidance, they complain more.
Yeah. And collectivism so behaviors, if you go again, so people who are higher on collectivism, they complain less, right? Yeah.
Collectivism, no.
At least when you measure it as, did you go out for help? Oh, and the same thing, by the way, with power distance, then I guess the same thing. So they may be more grumpy, but they are less likely to go and actually talk to the professor. Because the yellow columns here, did you ever have to talk to your professor or coaches? So they're less likely to complain to superiors, but it looks like they're more likely to be viewed as grumpy and irritated to their team members. Actually, that makes sense. So yeah.
And here's the gender and age.
My only concern about looking at it from that lens is that you used Hofstede's measures, Vas?
It was used
you.
instrument, so it was a different.
Yep.
The instrument, yes, same dimensions, but this one specifically for individual level of measure.
Oh, use dimension. Okay.
Use dimension. I also checked
Like
Hofstede's dimension.
Yeah, you at all. So it's
Yeah.
So we didn't use the Hofstede's instrument, but yeah. So age. So what do we see here? So older people complain more, or older people are more grumpy.
Yep.
But they are less likely to go to complain to professor. And then master's students, same thing. So I guess it's not surprising because older are more likely to get the master's level. Those with work experience complain less. And men versus women, so peer evaluations. So women are rated as more grumpy, right? So by peers. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. So, but they're less likely to actually go. So actually, we see some discrimination. So they're rated as more complaining, but when it comes to did they actually go and complain? No, they didn't. So that's an interesting. So it seems like women have it unfair because they're less likely to actually do it, but are more likely to be criticized by the team members for it.
Or said differently, they're less likely to recognize that they're doing it.
Or maybe they just don't tell, right? Because it's self-reported. So yeah.
Long-Su, what is that study based on? One semester, all students in one season, or what is the sample here?
That's a good question. I use all the data.
Meaning 10 years or?
I think we had about
the whole data set.
So we had about 2 semesters when we collected those data. So it should be a few thousand people.
Okay, because I think in order to really find some valuable finding here is, and I'm just picking one, Vas, you mentioned older people are complaining more, I think you said, or are more grumpy. Since if you remember a few years ago when the two of us started the executive track, right? And started collecting age data or work experience data and all those kind of things. I don't know this, we have to look at the data, but when I look at my executive students, if they work with other executive students in the same age group with the same work experience, I would expect, not knowing the results, but I would expect that there's probably less complaining because they're all on the same page, Whereas if you put an old person into a young team, they say, oh my gosh, you know, all those young kids, they don't know anything, and I'm the only one assigned to a to their team, and they might be complaining more and they might be more grumpy. Okay, so I think these kind of moderators in there, seeing team composition, or I think that would be much more interesting than just looking at overall averages, because the averages may not really tell us that whole picture. You know, that old joke among economists, right? That an economist has his head in the oven, baking it, and the feet in the freezer, and on average the body temperature is fine. And that's what we're seeing here, right? We don't look at different areas here where we see probably much more significant results leading one or the other direction if we look at some of those moderators. So I'm wondering if we may want to think about some of those things. But I think it's a good starting point we're doing here. So it makes us think, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, when it comes to age, by the way, so yes, we can look at what kind of team composition was there, because most of the teams, at least I always try to have more or less balanced age, but for some it may be mixed, and maybe more complaining happens when they are older and younger. But also it may be interesting to plot age and complaining, you know, like 17, 18 or whatever the youngest age. So maybe there is an inflection point, maybe like 17 to 21, maybe they don't care at all. But maybe once you hit like 27, maybe that's where they become very vocal, or whatever, you know.
Yeah, and also looking, I think, you know, what and we always tend to do that, you know, I include myself to look at all those significant findings. But when we look at all those, and that's why I asked Long Su what that, you know, what the sample is. If we look at insignificant findings now, which are 0, right? They could actually be for a subset very positive, and for the other subset very negative, and then on average they have no finding, right? Just because of, and I think there might be some interesting findings there as well, to do like a subgroup analysis, especially, you know, when you look at team composition and you know, country variables, because this is basically averaging everything out. You know, all the variables are averaged, right? What country they're from, what age group they are, and all those kind of things. So I think I don't know how we want to approach that, but I think we might find a little more if we do some of those subgroup analyses based on things we might expect.
I think that's an interesting point that you're bringing up. Of course, in psychology, we always say it depends. And so what you're talking about, all the different covariates that may be affecting the relationship, I'd like to throw in another possibility that there could be some curvilinear relationships happening with respect to age, for example. As I had a student who was 19 and was finishing up her graduate program, and I find her to be extraordinarily serious compared to her 22, 23-year-old traditional age graduate students, as almost as serious as the 40-year-old graduate students, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you know, another thing, Sharon, sorry, but that made me think, Vas, you know that too. When we initially established the criteria about, you know, you should have at least 20% weight for X culture, but no more than 30, so that everyone should be in that range, right? So that at least 20%, meaning, you know, it has some weight of your total grade, but no more than 30. Otherwise, students are stressed out. And, you know, my classes are always somewhere in the middle, right? So 25 plus minus 2.5% or so. But I always, especially in those undergraduate classes, I hear from my students that there are some teammates in there for whom it doesn't count at all. It's like a voluntary experience, and the instructors basically then didn't really reveal the truth. Right? They might have claimed that they are between the 20 and 30 range, but they're not. And then I hear the other extreme that they say, oh, the entire course is based on X culture. So if you now have those differences, now thinking about that curvilinear relationship, right? That those students for whom it doesn't count, they might not complain. It doesn't really matter. Okay, what happens? Just go through that experience. Whereas those for whom it counts 100%, and it shouldn't, but it does, they complain more because their whole grade depends on it. So there might be a curvilinear relationship, and that might be interesting for us to kind of get an idea about what should be that ideal weight of X culture for students to kind of enjoy the experience, but not be freaked out at the same time, you know, so to have a more prescriptive kind of finding.
To that, Daniel, since this issue comes up all the time, I'm curious to see if we'll find something interesting here, because people often say that there is a problem that some students, the course weighs, the project weighs more in the course than for others. For about 90%, it would be between 20 and 35%. But we do have some where it's 100%, and we have some it's 0 for whatever reason. But if you look at the correlations between, for example, peer evaluations and course grade percentage, or whatever else, it's literally zero, like it's as close to zero, almost perfect. So, but complaining, that actually may be one of those cases where there is a correlation, because I always say that don't worry about how much the project weighs in the course, because everything we look at correlations is zero. But here, maybe you're right. Maybe it will actually be, you know, students will be more worried. Yeah.
To add a little bit to that, what pops to my mind is the number of credit bearing units the course may be. So someone, I can easily see a professor, for example, in Spain, who teaches 4 ETCS, having the entire program be the course because of the amount of work and the amount of contact hours, the amount of group activities. Whereas in the United States, it's worth about a third because or 1 credit worthy, and 4 ETCS is roughly 1 credit, US credit. So that could be another.
Yeah, I would be, again, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think maybe for complaining, it will play a role because, you know, obviously if it's an important part of my grade, students will, you know, sort of take it more seriously. But as I said, I looked at correlations with peer evaluations, all 5 dimensions, satisfaction, enjoyment, quality of the report, and the correlation is like literally zero. Like I even had a couple of times when professors sort of came and complained about it, and I, you know, on the shared screen and ran the correlations. So I'm curious to see if it has any effect on complaining, but on the other variables I checked before, it didn't matter. So, but anyway, Lonju, so I see you have here some additional data related to country rank. So I assume that's basically what country rank, meaning that, you know, prestige of the country, sort of, so to speak, development. That's
yes, that's the reputation. Ranking.
And so in this case, it's reversed. So it's meaning that people from more developed countries are complaining more, right?
Complaining less. I mean, self-evaluate and peer evaluate are also reversed coding. The higher the ranking, the lower the chances they will complain.
No, but in this case, I think because country ranking is reversed. So that the positive relationship normally means negative. I mean, the positive coefficient means negative relationship, but because the country ranking 1 is high, 10 is low, I think in this case, it's reverses once again. So it almost seems like the more developed the country, the less
they complain.
No, the more they complain, is it?
No, the peer eval, it's also reversed, right?
So here's the question: did you physically reverse country ranking, but not physically reverse self-evaluation?
No, I think the ranking meaning reverse, meaning that 1 is a good number and 100 is a low number.
But the question is, did he do that in the analysis, or is it the way we need to think about it?
I did in analysis. The original data is 1A is a good thing. The country ranking number 1, that's the best. I mean, the country with the best reputation. And it's hard to interpret, so I reversed. And now the higher the value in country ranking, that means that country has a higher reputation, better reputation.
So you physically manipulated that one, but you did not physically manipulate the other. And that's what I was clarifying. So that's
right. So yes, correct.
So the higher the ranking, the less self-evaluation of complaining.
Right.
No, Lonju, that's the less developed the country, the less complaining we see. Yeah, so the less developed the country, the less complaining we see. So people from developed countries complain more based on peer and self-evaluations. Yeah.
No, because he physically reversed coding for countries.
Oh, you did reverse?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Then
these 3, right? These 3 are the these 3 country rankings. I use the original, I mean the raw data. The best country, or the country with the best reputation, ranked number 1. The higher the number is, means the lower the reputation.
Okay. So how do we measure reputation? How do we measure that? What is the
that's an external data set, right?
Right. Yes.
Somebody compiles those rankings, and basically, like, Switzerland has a high prestige or high reputation, but maybe Russia has a low reputation, or like Saudi Arabia.
Based on what? Corruption, institutional quality?
They literally look at reputation. So basically, how popular the country is. So we used it in a different.
Shouldn't we look at education level or something?
Yeah, we can look at that as well. We can look at that as well. We used these data. I assume Lonju uses it from the universal ranking study we use. But
Right,
the idea
yes.
there was that people from sort of popular countries, like like Switzerland or Norway or Canada, people will like them more. And if you come from a country that has a generally negative reputation, like Saudi Arabia, they're rich, but people sort of like, yeah, I don't know, sounds a little, so people will discriminate against them. And so I think that's that one.
I think
You
they had,
scrolled it down.
it has like 12 dimensions, freedom, HDI, education level, and everything, and they combine them together and calculate that reputation score.
You know what is interesting there was that we assume that students have that perception about foreign countries. And I can tell you there's a lot of undergraduate students, they don't even know where those countries are located, let alone knowing about their reputation or having ever heard, that country exists. So I think that's maybe if we look at country rankings based on their education level or quality of education or basic education, I think that might tell us something too, rather than just the reputation of the country.
We can look at that, but in a different study, we actually make just the opposite argument. So with Ernesto, with Bob, I think Lonju is there as well. So there, the whole point was that people may not know what the GDP per capita is. People may have no clue how much, for example, Singapore spends on education. But when they hear names like, for example, like, let's say, I don't know, Germany or Canada, oh, that sounds good. Yeah, we know like good cars and nice people. And when they hear something like Qatar, like, I have no idea, but I've heard it somewhere like, like Arab terrorists, who knows what they are, but, so people have those perceptions without knowing where the country might be, how developed it is. Like, like you would know a lot about, for example, United Arab Emirates, that it's a very, developed country, very, but for many people that the sort of the perception may not be quite. And so the logic was that people may not know the precise indicators, but they know something about their reputation. That's
I mean, like, I hear where you're coming from. You
want to check all of them.
No, you want to tap into the team member's perception of a specific team member's country. But when I look at education, I think, if you're from a highly educated environment, you may or may not complain more. So I would look at from that perspective, not the perceptions of others about your education level, but how does it affect people from that highly or lowly educated country environment? The idea.
So yeah, I totally agree with you. I think all this number shows us is, are people more likely to complain about people complaining depending on where those people come from? And so it looks like if you come from a prestigious country, you may get some sort of, extra bonus. People will perceive you more positively. And so when you complain, they will perceive that as you're just being, proactive. Or if you come from
so you kind of, you're tapping into stereotyping in a way,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. I'm talking about precisely stereotyping.
But then if you look at stereotyping, then you could also bring in the prestige of the university, right? That you have someone from a prestigious university that they get more, more upfront kind of trust or so. I don't know.
Yeah. Precisely the idea. So yeah.
Here again, we need to look at a curvilinear relationship, because we know from the subjective well-being scales, country measures, that there is a curvilinear relationship on subjective well-being as well.
Maybe like there is a sweet spot, a little complaining is good, but not too much, and not being, not talking about it. Lonju, can you go
down,
to 40?
Yeah, go down.
Can you go a little bit up? 40, line 40?
Oh, he wants to go up. Okay, go up.
So yeah, so this is where we have barriers. So that's where we may decipher, is it subjective or not? So when people actually experience problems, they're more likely to go and complain, right? From what I see.
Yes.
Mhm.
So here, so again, still not quite sure which one is the cause and which one is the effect. But when we talk, if you took the overall average, so if people had difficulty scheduling their meetings, if people had difficulties, dealing with the time zone differences, things like that. So then they complain. So in this case, we can say that the barrier came first and complaining came next, because it's unlikely that it's the other way around. Although some of this is also reaching consensus. So maybe when you have a difficulty reaching consensus, then you start complaining. So maybe, or the other way around, when you complain all the time, then maybe the consensus is harder to reach.
Conscientiousness. What's the V-2 for conscientiousness? What does that mean?
Oh, I found there are two versions. two scales to
version 2. Okay, got it.
right, version 2.
Yeah, I think we had the conscientiousness measured separately at some point. Yeah.
Right.
But then also looking at the expectations. So when people expected problems, and that expected barrier, that's even before the project started. So here we actually have a measure before. And so it looks like those who expected problems, they actually, if we self-evaluated, they also complained more. And then also, yeah, so in this case, it does tell us that the negative sort of outlook leads to more complaining.
Can you go down, if you guys are
Sure.
done with this? I just want to see what else is
My
here.
wallet, is the pool open today?
Resilience and cultural values.
Cultural values. Okay. So what do we have? Uncertainty. So when I'm looking at this, not knowing exactly what I'm doing, I'm actually kind of ignoring self-evaluation, and I'm taking a look at peer evals, and then I think if I've got it in my mind properly, the complaining I don't know what that is, help at 10 and 11. Those are administrative records, right? So those are more objective records.
Well, the yellow ones are self-reported, but the question was, did things ever got so bad that you had to complain to your professor? Yeah, have things ever gone so bad in your team that you had to complain or ask for help from your professor or coaches? So it's still self-reported, so people may underreport the actual problems.
So it's probably as objective as we're going to get on this one. Right?
Yeah, but in this case, at least it's some sort of a recall and schedule or phrased in a way that it's not embarrassing to admit that I had to seek help. So, Lonju, any chance we have how similar or different do you think your team members are at the beginning? So that's another one that is pre, like the barriers expected, and the pre trying to establish the causality and timing here.
You mean the variable perceived different? Perception of difference?
Yeah.
I didn't include here in the table, but I can quickly run correlation.
No worries. Yeah, no need. But since we saw that people who expect problems.
Oh, there's diversity measure. If you
need. So something like that.
Yes, diversity is right here.
Oh, so now that's the actual team diversity, right? So again,
right, yes.
The more diverse the team, the more complaining we have. It almost seems like we do have some evidence of how attitudes drive complaining behavior. So if people are different, I guess it's not necessarily attitude, but there is something going on there. And then, but you don't have how similar or different do you think that the cultures are in your team or something like that?
I didn't include that.
No problem.
Okay.
But again, if people perhaps see a lot of internal external attribution, so it's not part of that. So we didn't have that. Well, from what I see, again, obviously much more research is needed, but at least there are some interesting correlations, and so it seems to me that there will be something that we can discuss both in terms of who complains more, but also what happens when complaining happens.
Longju, do you have this posted on the group SharePoint, on the group Dropbox?
Oh, not yet. I just I just made this. I will upload it after our meeting.
Okay. When you do, could you somehow denote the peer evaluation? Just put the scale for the peer evaluation complaints and self-evaluation. Oh, it's there. Okay.
It's there. Yes.
Okay.
Well,
just on the first
take another look at the mean by country just to see, again, going back to, so do we think there is a systemic variance by country in some way? I don't know if there is an easy way to.
Could you maybe sort on peer evaluation?
Or maybe low and high. I guess the full table, you want to sort the full table.
Yeah.
Yeah,
largest
sort the full table. Oh, it does it automatically.
Yeah, so Zimbabwe, some sort of a mistake, right? But so here the lower the number, so that's less complaining is larger number. So Austrians do not complain, so we thought they complained, they don't. Chile, Denmark, Ethiopia, Indonesia. So do we see any system here?
Well, as you said, Vas, we can't really look at the 5.0s because there may be very small ends, right?
Well, some of them are relatively large.
But 5.0 seems to be way too.
Yeah, you're right. Except for Austria. Yeah, so, but yeah, it probably was either one or two students, because otherwise it couldn't be a perfect. So trying to see if we can see some sort of system here. So it seems quite a mix, right?
Mhm.
Can you scroll all the way down to see which ones are most complaining? So Ireland is, but that's probably just one. Belarus, Turkmenistan, Ghana, Nepal. Trying to see, like Egypt, we definitely have a lot of people. India, we have a lot of people. So India is definitely not just one student; it's a lot.
Yeah.
And so they complain.
We don't have 1 and 2s. The lowest one we have is 3.
That's fine. I mean, I don't think we have anyone who is so, but then we have South Koreans complain a lot, and that's peer evaluations or perceived as complain a lot.
Yeah.
Peru, Saudi Arabia, we have multiple students for sure. And that's
So,
based on country.
I'm not sure if I'm not sure if they're complaining a lot. It's at least they are 4.4, very close to 5.
So it's so basically everybody's between 4 and 5, so to speak, right?
Right, yes.
Hardly
Only like 2
anyone is.
countries. Yeah.
So then it
so-
almost looks like there is really not that much difference.
Right.
Well, I guess, depending on how we express it, if we express it in standardized units, then there is a big difference. But if it's on a sort of regular scale, then it seems like most people complain little, so to speak.
Mhm. Right.
But the peer eval complaint, is that a self or peer assessment? Like what is that?
Peer assessment, right?
Right.
So it's non-self assessment, because then in this you actually have people interpreting, right? Like an American interpreting a Chinese, interpreting a Brazilian. And so I guess somewhere in there, their average will come out, but it's less clear, right?
Yeah, one of the studies we thought, let's see who complains about whom. So maybe like Ukrainians complain, whatever that number is, but maybe they complain like 1.0 about Russians and maybe, I don't know, 5.0 about Germans. And so they're just because they like Mercedes-Benz and they don't like Lada, or whatever that is. So, right. So, yeah.
But I think Justin's point is an important one. And this one, it's hard. This is going to be a hard one to interpret because is it the Bangladeshi, for example, whose average of 4.73 is across his other or her other 5 peers?
That's what the peers told us about the Bangladeshi when they were asked, is this person grumpy, complaining, and shows irritation?
Okay, so this is all 5 other students on a team's complaints of the Bangladeshi.
So they said Bangladeshi in this case is about 4.7. So didn't complain too much because 5 would have been never complained. So but complained sometimes.
But let's understand that of the average 6 people on a team, usually 2 are Americans, right? So you're going to get an probably overweight American version in this somewhere, right?
Yeah, well, and that's why I say, we probably need to be looking at who complains about whom as well, because maybe some people are just more lenient when it comes to rating, and then maybe there are also some biases. Maybe again, people complain a lot about one country, but like the United States seems to be right in the middle somewhere at 0.6, 4.6. Middle of the pack, although again 4.6, that's the difference between never complains and complains rarely.
There's an issue with the data though. There's USA at 50, row 58, and United States row 66.
Yeah, I noticed that, but since the numbers are virtually identical, it must have been just changed in one semester. It's a shorter name. So, but in a sense, it shows that the numbers are valid because it's like, a fraction of a point difference. So it's probably okay. Yeah, I did notice that too, but I think it's fine. Yeah. And I think there are some problems with enjoyment there. So in clarity, because I think it's a 0 to 100 scale. So
but I think it does illustrate the point that others are addressing here. Like, so to say that USA complains more than France or less than France, like you can't. I mean, you just can't make
so
those
they're
kinds of
very close. Yeah, in any case. Well, and that's one of those issues that I was a little worried about. We saw that with cultural intelligence. So the idea was that we would rank countries on cultural intelligence, but the truth is that most of them were roughly in the same range. And so here we do have obviously rankings. So we can say that the United States is at the bottom of the list, so complains more, or 58 out of whatever the number of countries. But the truth is that pretty much all of them are between 4, which equals rarely complains, to 5, which equal or represents never complains. So we only have like a couple of countries that are below rarely, so it's like sometimes, but those are probably like a couple of students, so that's not representative. And same thing on the other extreme. So it almost looks like while we can force the rankings. I was on this one, so I was, you all know about cultural looseness and tightness, Michelle Delfont, right? And so you also the study probably in Science, where she has the national rankings, and then she published a lot of work on this and her team. We even had an interview with her on the X-Culture podcast. But then I recently was a reviewer for a paper that sort of criticized that work. And so they asked for the original data from Michelle, and to her credit, she shared the data. And they said, okay, well, in the paper that was published in Science, the data were standardized. So they looked at number of standard deviations above and below. And then obviously some countries were high, some countries were low. But they said when we looked at the raw data, which was a 5-point scale, pretty much everybody was between 3 and 4. So they said all those 28 countries were basically, kind of loose, culturally loose, but not too loose and not too tight. And they said when you look at the raw numbers, there is really not that much substantive difference. I mean, is there really much difference between 3.5 and 3.7? And so they said that it's kind of, exaggerated, inflated real differences. And so what we can do here as well, we can standardize these scores, and we can say that, for example, Barbados is complaining a lot, compared to whatever the other countries are on the top of the list. But in reality, that's a difference between, like a fraction of point in the range of never to seldom, right? So therefore, I'm not sure how useful those rankings might be.
But this is not that they complain a lot, it's that people complain about them a lot.
Or the other people think they're complainers.
People say that they're complainers. Assuming that peer evaluation is objective, we can say they complain a lot. But a lot is a wrong word here, so they don't complain a lot.
Yeah.
They complain very little, a little bit more than others, but it's still very little. So that's the point.
So I'm not exactly sure, what's in this table, but to Lonju's credit, he's done a heck of a lot of work. So thank you, Lonju. But is there a direction that we can take for general motivation? Because clearly we have more nations represented and at the greater scale. Well, I mean, on the back to the mean by country.
Oh, back to mean country. Yep.
Yes. So you see column C.
Yep.
Right. So is there a ranking study to be had about general motivation?
Can we actually do a quick correlation between B, C, and D? Something wrong with E and F, so I'm not touching those.
Yep.
But
Exactly.
But I wonder if we should control or eliminate rows 2 through at least 19 where that's a 5.0, since we probably don't have. So that
it should have been sample size weighted, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I can show you the sample size real quick. I just delete them. I have the full table somewhere. Oh.
But I think, Lonju, I wouldn't worry too much. I guess it will give us some sort of an indication if we just do a basic correlation. I mean, yes, properly we want to do sample size weighted. And I think I'm not sure if you can do it in Excel, but like state SPSS, you can do that weighted by sample size.
Yep. And this one has sample size
1, 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think as a quick little heuristic to go back to the original table we were looking at before, I would just anyone who has a very strong 5.0. I shouldn't say strong.
Yeah, maybe just exclude the few top and the few bottom, right?
Yeah. That will give us a little bit of a better picture.
Hey, Longju, is this just like one semester data or something? I mean, like even in the United States, it said only 89.
So that's I also found that too. It looks like the table is
that's not right.
Okay,
Yeah.
USA has
It's not right.
38 and United States has 89, but that still seems really low even for one semester of data.
No, yeah, it should be for it should be more like 1,000.
Right. I somehow when I undo the changes, it won't give me the original
No worries, no
table.
worries. Yeah, it seems like that table needs a closer look.
Oh,
anyway.
right. This is the original table. I didn't. This is just from SPSS. It's a huge. Let me just find that.
So what is, yeah, you're looking at United States. Yeah, there we go. Well, no, wait, that's
Still 89.
89.
And the other one's going to be the
USA,
same.
what-
You know,
USA.
I wonder if there is something with that motivation, because I think, to do the correlation, you need to have matched pairs. And it almost looks like something's wrong there because one of the variables is, missing a lot of values. Because, yeah, we do have enough.
Oh,
United
we have
States.
1,000.
But even here, you have 12,000 missing, so something's not right.
I used the whole. I mean, the whole data set from ever since 20.
And then
13.
you just have one semester, so in that case, it's 12.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
So the result will give me whatever semester and year they have data. So I don't need to go
But,
specifically
yeah, so it's
any year.
1,200 people. So you had, so the other semester
Yep.
excluded.
Right.
We
Yes.
only had one semester with peer evaluation.
Yeah. The reason I did this, I just don't want to miss any variables. So I
Right.
want to include everything together. And then if we're interested in one idea or topic, I can go deeper in one semester or year, so we can dig out the better. I mean, another story.
Well, the important thing is, so we do have some correlations, we do have some national differences, we do have some demographics apparently matters to some extent. So it seems like there is enough there to start digging for. And as Daniel pointed out, maybe we should look at moderators as well. So there is definitely something going on. So now the big question is, can we find what's going on? So do we want to take a quick look again at the list of papers we had originally in mind and see which ones we should be working on? Or what?
Sure, I will stop share.
Yeah, I'm trying to see, in terms of the next step. So, if everything were zero correlation, then in that case, I guess there is no point, or unless it's a very strong moderation effect. But here it seems like there are some direct effects. There will be some moderated effects. It looks like there will be some, I'm not sure, national differences if they are strong enough to matter. So it seems like we do have some evidence of bias going on, or some sort of, stereotyping going on. So it looks like there are a bunch of things going on. So I'm not sure if we want to take another week, clean the data, take a closer look, see what correlates with what, and then decide which papers we pursue. Or do we want to now separate the, in sub-teams by topic, and then people will then start doing each of them their own analysis? Like, what's the best way here?
I would suggest I after I upload the file to the share folder, and we take a week and maybe try to come up with the story that you're interested in, and I can do some analysis and to find out even if there is a story and significant results over there. And maybe,
maybe we can also connect maybe with Justin as well and just take a look at the data. Like if we look at the number of cases and averages for each variable. So
Sure.
Usually what I do, I look minimum, maximum, average, and n. And so sometimes, if something's not right, it's like, for example, I noticed your enjoyment there was like between 1 and like 5,000. So that's definitely something's wrong there. So it's either a sum, but like those numbers should be between 0 and 100. So we might want
that must be a misalignment from Excel.
Or maybe a misalignment. So maybe that's the number of cases, not the number.
Right. Yes.
But in any case, it's always a good idea to go one more time
to
the data set and look at those key statistics just to see if anything's out of expected range. And then either if we see like for the United States, if we see that it's only 89 cases, we know that something's wrong. If we see that peer evaluations are above 5 or below 1, we know something's wrong. Sometimes what also happens is that missing values are read as zeros when you start moving data between like SPSS and Excel. And so again, it may not be immediately visible in terms of the range, but you start noticing, like once you look at the minimum, if there are zeros there and they shouldn't be, then you know that it was. So what we can do is we can, have just the two of us, or with Justin, the three of us, a quick meeting just to make sure that all of the data have been read correctly, and then see if we can find any, relationships by the next week. And at that point, then separate into sub-teams by topic, by paper, basically, right? Or maybe there is only one paper that we can pursue, in which case maybe we'll just work all together. So anything else we need to then do other than plan to take a closer look at the data and maybe run some, again, basic analysis at the level of correlations.
So, Lanju, I mentioned this last meeting. We're kind of running in parallel. Our skills are somewhat similar, right? And I don't want to duplicate effort. You seem to be well on your way. I'd love to help without question. So if I can plug in and support, you let me know. But can I check? That's another question. Can I?
Sure, I totally agree with Vas. I think that two people working on the same process is always better than one person.
Oh, okay.
We can double check
Okay.
each other's work, make sure it's correct.
Yeah, and then
sometimes when it runs hundreds of analysis, I will make mistakes. I don't want to find it out before we submitted the journal. That will be bad. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking.
The duplication will come very handy once we know that we have multiple papers. Then you can each specialize in one or the other, or maybe also check each other's work. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one last comment. So that's the sort of the numbers that we have right now, and we can double check each other over the next week or so. But there's a few of us who've been emailing back and forth of a potential data collection in the fall. Is this an appropriate time to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, actually, that's a very good time. We have time, so we don't have to make any decisions now. But yes, evidently, despite our sort of efforts to measure some things related to this project, the measures are not, perfect. And so those who don't know, so Justin and Sharon have sent some ideas, and I'm not sure if you have any suggestions, but yeah, we can maybe collect another round and do it right, so to speak, and measure more stuff in the fall.
So maybe go ahead, Sharon.
Well, in addition to what we've been exchanging ideas, but just listening to the conversation today, I thought of two additional measures that we might want to consider, particularly around the domain of complaining, and that is an assessment of professors' perceptions of their students complaining, to have multi-source, not just the peers evaluation. So at some point, maybe toward the end of maybe 2 weeks before or 1 week before the end of the submission of the report, we could ask professors, go through on a scale of whatever, a similar scale, a match scale. Please indicate the extent to which your student, and list the names of the students, complained.
I think that probably will be unrealistic at the individual level. So we can ask professors in general, how much did your students complain? But realistically, I mean, imagine, let's say, Sharon, for example, you have 50 students, and we ask to rate each one. I mean, I know many professors, some will do it, out of respect and politeness, but many will be like, oh, come on.
Yeah, that's
And
okay. But
likewise, we also thought about checking each week, like, can you tell us who complained to you this week? Again, I think it would be hard. What we can ask is, have your students complained, and then just have, like a lot every week somebody complained versus, never. So, but that would be a little bit less useful or at least less precise.
So could we have a list? So every week send the professors a list of students, like a survey, and just say, check the box if this student has complained to you this week. And so very few will be checked.
We can, but again, out of 100 and something professors, like, would you be, like if you got that survey, would you be?
Okay, so when I participate with a class of like 120. So there's no way I'll be able to do it. Right? I don't even know my students, never mind answering the questions. So
that's the point.
Me too. I don't even know I cannot remember all their names.
Yeah. So
if you gave me a list, I don't know who is who.
But if they complain to you, would you know it, or you still don't know it?
Usually I will ask in the beginning of the class who has problems, who has questions. But they will just raise their hand and tell me the questions. I would ask for suggestion, offer some suggestion. Sometimes I don't remember their names. Most of the time, I don't remember the names.
But don't forget that we do have precise records with the coaching program. And so technically coaching program, that's where they should be going for help. And we keep track of every name, every minute. And we actually keep track of what kind of request they had. So was it specifically complaining, or was it, request for feedback, or was it maybe something else? I think they have like 7 categories. And so at least with the external coaches, we do have those precise records already. So, and maybe that's even more valuable. I guess professor is also valuable, but this is presumably that's where we route them if they have a problem. So,
Okay.
so that we do.
That could be a good place then.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know,
then
you could do
other-
something. Oh, sorry.
Go
We
ahead.
could do
No,
something
sorry,
as
Bob,
simple.
real quick, sorry to interrupt. Bas, are we keeping this time every week? So are we going to meet at 10 o'clock? I'm sorry, since we're 5 minutes past 11, I have a paper presentation come up at AIB Latin America, and I'm the first presenter, so I gotta look out and get ready for that. Sorry for that. But are we meeting? So the plan is that Long Su and with Justin and maybe Bas looking over that data again, and then next week we meet again at 10 and have another look at the data, and then probably branch out or think about other measures, or is that the plan now? So
Let's do
10
that.
o'clock on Fridays is generally bad for me.
So
I've been
I have
canceling
no
meetings
preference.
left and right.
Now, so when you say 10 o'clock, so does it mean that 9 would work, or it means that, or 11, or it means that Friday in general is bad?
9 a.m. would work for me, 9 to 10.
I cannot do 9. I have a standing committee meeting university at 9 to 10. So so maybe we have to send another doodle poll then, I guess, huh?
We can do
Yeah, because
that.
the first doodle poll was just for that one specific date, not generally.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's fine. And schedule sometimes change as well, Sharon. That's perfectly fine. And I think it seems to be a smaller group, so in the beginning, I think it was even a bigger group. So maybe having another doodle poll might be a good idea, huh?
We can do, but let me do one quick. So how about if we moved it to Saturday? Would Saturday 10 a.m. work for everyone?
No.
Or no?
I could do it, but okay.
Well, let me maybe send another
Let's do
doodle.
doodle.
and then-
Let's do a doodle poll, huh?
Yeah, let's do the doodle poll and yes. And I'll suggest, so Justin is, it's what, like midnight in your time zone now, or 11?
It's 8. It's 8.
8 p.m.?
No, it's 10. 22,
10.
20, 10.
10
It's
p.m.
10.
So we cannot go much later anyway. So it would be basically 9 a.m. EST or 10 a.m. EST. And Lonju, you are, for you, it's what, it's
10 a.m.
10. So
Yes.
you're 1 hour. And Daria, you also 10 a.m., right? So you're 1 hour ahead of, behind us.
What about Thursdays at 10 a.m.? Like just
What
putting it
I
a
mean
day
is that
forward?
I'll include all 5 days. I'm just trying to see what
Oh,
hours.
I
And
see.
realistically, it would have to be either 9 a.m.
Yeah.
EST, 10 a.m. EST, or 11 a.m. EST. Anything earlier, and then Daria and Lonju have to wake up too early. And anything later, Justin will have to stay past midnight.
Yep.
I actually would prefer to wake up earlier because I am beginning teaching from next week and it will be at 10, so I can do.
So earlier is okay then. Lonju, what time do you wake up? I know for me,
I'm not a morning.
Yeah,
Bob
okay.
knows I'm not a morning person, but I can. I
Pressure.
can. If the group agrees, definitely I can.
well, I'll send
Good
a
for
poll
you.
then for all 7 days of the week with those time slots, and then hopefully we'll find
Okay.
it. Then maybe let's stop here. So Daniel needs to go. Everybody's tired.
Sorry
So
about
we'll
that,
talk
guys,
next
but
time. So
I
think
got to
about
present.
possible
Good luck.
measures. We have enough time to figure out that, but yes, it would be maybe better to measure even better. And then meanwhile, Lonju, Justin, and I will take a closer look at the data just so to have it clean. And then the plan is next time to separate maybe into paper subgroups. And then so as long as the
Can-
data are ready, then everybody can start doing their own exploration. Or maybe
so
even, yeah.
Okay, so Lanju, Voss, can the three of us just sort of have a 5-minute chat
Yes.
after we part?
Yeah, in fact, we can even stay now, so maybe we don't really need to schedule anything
Okay.
else and take a quick look at the data set. So,
Okay.
All right,
Right.
take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Look out for that doodle
Okay.
poll. See you
Thank
next
you.
week or so.
Yeah.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Stay healthy.
Bye.
Vas, quick question. Have you seen my email about the X-Culture textbook?
yes. And so I'll be sending you, so I should have the ISBN number today. So we have the title and everything. So yeah, there was a little delay there because my library was supposed to take care of the ISBN and things. And it almost looks like at some point they said, okay, you know what, we gave you some money for the project, now you're on your own. And so the application cost like $100. So I just decided to do it myself. So I'll have you the full reference, and we'll have the full text available, including on Amazon if everything goes fine within the next month or so. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm finalizing, now we're working on this, title page, the credits page, all that stuff, but we should have the full ebook ready like literally anytime now.
Good job, guys.
Nice.
Okay, thank you, guys. See you next week.
Take
So
care.
Daria, you can wait another day or two for that, or you need it right away?
Yes, I need it in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, okay, I'll have it.
So,
So I'm not sure if we want to take a look at the data now, or
can we stop recording? Or they don't need to.
yes, yeah. Actually, good idea.